Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 210. In this show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. I go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week and everything in between, so let's get started. It's a pretty heavy week, but a lot of good comics to talk about. But let's start with the one I least liked this week, and that is number 22, and that was X-Men. No, actually it wasn't X-Men Blue, I'm sorry. That was Out of Order, so sorry for spoiling that, but it actually was Venomverse issue 4. So Venomverse issue 4 is my number 22, and I just feel like the fun aspect of Venomverse has been dying every issue that we get through, because the actual storyline of the poisons is not very well developed. The interactions aren't as entertaining as the beginning because they're focusing on way too many characters, and that is the biggest disappointment. But the artwork's still fun. It's just a very cluttered issue for me. So Venomverse issue 4 gets 2 stars, and that is number 22. Moving on to that book I just mentioned, and that was X-Men Blue, issue 12. So X-Men Blue just felt like a filler story for me. If you like Madeline Pryor as a villain, you'll, I guess, enjoy this issue, but for me, I don't really care for her as a villain, and I guess it was interesting seeing the Elseworld X-Men kind of joining the team kind of by the end, where they're like, hey, you could be part of us, and they're making a decision by the end of the issue. But it definitely feels like they're stalling just for the Marvel Legacy storyline and the crossover between X-Men Gold, and that was disappointing. But the artwork is solid for the most part, but it depends if you're a Madeline Pryor fan if you're going to enjoy this one. So X-Men Blue issue 12 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 21. Now moving on again to books that I pretty much like. These are all going to be 3-star books and above after this. So number 21 was Red Sonja issue 9. So Red Sonja, this issue, I definitely enjoy the Red Sonja aspect of her riding a Lamborghini and not knowing what it is, so I like her interaction with her friends, and then the sacrifice she has by the end. So is Red Sonja gonna survive after that truck exploding? So I did like the Red Sonja stuff. The Max stuff was interesting to see a fish out of water storyline, but I wasn't as invested in him or the villain as the Red Sonja story. So overall, I am giving that 3 stars. Now moving on to a book, I'm kind of upset to see this low because I've been loving the book, and that's number 20 is Bettie Page, issue 3. I love the whole spy aspect, and I really like Bettie Page's voice here, but I don't feel like we really got her personality in this issue as much as issue 2 and 1, that she's teaming up with these other people. I like Bettie Page just kind of doing her own thing, but we are unraveling to see who the villains are of the story, which was cool. But even the artwork I thought wasn't as strong as it usually is. Like here, it felt like the inking was really off. You didn't really get to see the facial expressions very well. Artwork's still good, but just as it isn't as strong as the first and second issue. So I'm going to give Bettie Page issue 3 stars, and that is number 20. Alright, so now we are moving on to number 19, which is number 19 is Saga issue 47. So this is kind of a storyline that goes off, not off the books, but it just focuses on different characters like Will. So I remember Will from my reading. I've read about half a Saga and then did the jumping on point, and obviously I was able to catch on to the you know, our main characters, but here it just goes on this side story, which is kind of interesting, of this person looking at his past, which was cool, but I just wasn't as invested in these characters as our main characters, so that's why it's a little lower. So Saga issue 47 gets 3 stars, and that is number 19. Moving on to number 18, which is Generations Spider-Man, I'm just going to say, because it's too long of a title at this point. So Generations Spider-Man issue 1. This issue is okay. It doesn't fully have a purpose to really be here, and that's why it's a bit lower. But I did have a fun time of Miles seeing his younger self with Gonke. I did like that it was a bit original that they put it in the college years of Peter Parker instead of the high school years, because I felt like that would have been easier. But it's mostly Miles saying, hey, I'm having a hard time in my life. Peter's had a hard time in his life. We're all okay. I don't think the story needed to be told, but it was fun enough if you're a Miles and Peter fan. So, Generation Spider-Man issue 1 gets 3 stars. Alright, moving on to number 17, which is Justice League and the Power Rangers issue 6, which is the last issue of this miniseries. And this was delayed for a couple months. Each issue was kind of delayed, which takes you out of the storyline a bit, and I feel like this issue was a bit rushed compared to the others, but there's still some fun moments of Kimberly having the boxing glove arrow, and I like that the Justice League team went to the juice bar by the end of the issue. I thought that was fun, and Bruce tries to pay, but he has a Lex Luthor $100 bill. So, those moments definitely were fun, but doesn't make the issue, I don't know, it kind of feels coined in by the end of the Zords trying to defeat Lord Zed, the big version of him. So the action kind of falls flat here, but the epilogue was fun. Although it kind of leaves you on a cliffhanger. The Alpha is being controlled by Brainiac. So are we going to get a sequel? I don't know, because this book was kind of delayed and I didn't really hear anyone talking about it. So I don't know how well the sales did for this one. So I didn't love that it ended on a cliffhanger. But Justice League Power Rangers issue 6 still is a fun read. I love the artwork for this book, and I'm going to give this 3 stars. I like the Saturday morning cartoon vibe to the book. Alright, moving on to number 16, which is the new creative team for Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman issue 31, James Robinson's jumping onto this book, following a little bit more of the New 52 storyline with Wonder Woman, but we get to see that Hercules, or whatever his name is, it is Hercules, but what his full title is Hercules Unbound, has died. And now Wonder Woman finds out about it, and she's gonna have to uncover why he's died. And also Darkseid's daughter is back. So a lot of New 52 storylines here. But I like that it goes back to a darker tone. I did really like the artwork too. Again, it's a bit of a darker palette compared to the cartoonier version we got in last arc. But yeah, I'm interested. I'm invested. It's a bit of a slower burn, and again, it's still a little New 52 related, but I am definitely in for the ride. So Wonder Woman issue 31 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 15, which is Nightwing The New Order issue 2, which has been, and one of my books fell, I think. Maybe it didn't. Anyways, so, which has been pretty good for me. I've enjoyed Nightwing The New Order. I like the twist that we've been getting to see with Nightwing. And this issue is a lot of explaining, but it's good explaining of what happened to Starfire and, you know, what's been going on in this world and why people don't have superpowers and why Nightwing's son was scared to tell Dick about his powers. So it's a bit of a slower burn, but now it's Dick realizing I need to protect my son no matter what, even if it's something that my son doesn't like. So I did enjoy this issue. So Nightwing The New Order issue 2 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 14, which is Zodiac Starforce issue 2, which is the sequel. It's a longer name, Prince of something. But Zodiac Starforce, very fun book where we see the girls going up against this prince and the bad group of their school wanting to get superpowers too, and you really get to see their dynamic a little bit more, of both dynamics, the evil team and the good team, and I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I enjoyed these characters for the most part, and definitely the style of this book, if you are into anime and magical girl stuff. So that's number 14, I gave that 3.5 stars. Then moving on to a book that I read issue 1 of the last series, but then binge read it, and I was like, why not get this? And that is The Infinite Loop, which also has a longer name for the sequel, which I will not read. It's like The Truth of Something. And I like this. I enjoyed this issue. I like our main character, and it's her and her wife. Her wife is now this politician. They met in the last series, and they have to hide their marriage pretty much and hide their relationship because of politics and because Teddy would have to, who's our main character, would have to quit being this time jumper, this, you know, person that travels time in that organization that she works in, if she wants to stay married to her wife. So I like the complicated stuff here, and also her travels into, I think it was the future where we get to see that she's wanted. So some interesting plot lines here that definitely gets me invested, and the artwork is much better for this volume than it was in the first volume. I didn't love it, and that's why I dropped it, and now I think it's a bit cleaner and it fits the story a bit more. Alright, moving on to number 12, which I won't go too in-depth with because I did do an in-depth review, but Marvel Legacy issue 1. So it's kind of in the middle of the pack, as you see, and with Marvel Legacy, it's more of a teaser book, and I liked and disliked that because I wish there was a bit more structure. They tried to do that with the Valeria reveal in the end, which was the best part for me, but it just feels like, oh, let's throw in Ghost Rider, let's throw in Riri, and for me, even though these teasers was nice, I liked seeing Wolverine, even though I don't completely know how to feel about his return. Love seeing the Fantastic Four. I liked seeing like the Avengers team up between Sam and Jane and Riri. That was fun. So I love the little teases here. But I feel like there could have been more of a storyline. I feel like this could have been a fuller comic if there was a better maybe more of a vocal point. If Valeria was throughout the issue more than just a narration and the reveal in the end, I think this would have been a stronger issue. So Marvel Legacy issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 11, which is the Mighty Thor issue 23. I enjoyed this issue. I haven't been loving this arc with the War Thor. I was a little bored with it, with all the over-explaining of the Norse mythology that I don't tend to like with Thor. But I did like how Jane humanizes herself to talk to War Thor and say, I know what you're going through. This is what I'm going through. Let's help each other. And this leads into now the death of Jane Foster / the War of the Realms. So very excited to see where this takes us with Marvel Legacy. And I thought it was a pretty good in-between issue to get us there. So the Mighty Thor issue 23 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 10, which is Batgirl, issue 15. Very solid issue. Still don't know how to feel about this Red Queen villain. Not very interested in that, but I love the back and forth between Dick and Babs. I like that we get to see them in the present. You know, they've had this relationship for a very long time. They love each other, but it's always never the right time for them to be together. They have a wonderful kiss in this issue. But then we go to the past of them developing their relationship and being very innocent, and I enjoyed that aspect. So just their relationship, I like seeing. The actual Red Queen stuff could be a bit stronger, but overall, solid issue. Artwork is solid. It's a little lanky at times, but, you know, you can look over it. So, Batgirl issue 15 gets a solid 4 stars, especially if you love the Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon relationship. I think you'll enjoy this one. Moving on to number 9, which I think some people have higher, but it was a solid book, and there's so many good books this week. But Action Comics issue 988. I did get the lenticular cover. And this was a good origin issue of Jor-El, why he's doing the things he's doing. And I love the focal point of hope. So it's really a story of Jor-El losing hope. It's not like he went on Earth and just hated humans because he always hated humans. He's dealt with stuff and went through things to feel that way. And I definitely like that Jor-El is more than the mustache twirling villain. You don't even know if he's a villain, and that's kind of interesting. You just see his point of view and you know he might be going against our hero, but does that make him a true villain? And that's always the most interesting antagonist of stories. So really like this one. It's a bit exposition heavy, but it's definitely not boring exposition, which is great. So Action Comics issue 988 gets a solid 4 stars for me. Moving on to number 8, which is Crosswind issue 4. And I've been loving this story. I like, obviously, the different personalities of Juniper and Kaysen. And Juniper just feeling great that people actually are listening to her as Kaysen. And then Kaysen taking control of Juniper's life. And I love the artwork here with Cat Staggs just showing these power poses with Kaysen being Juniper, and Juniper slouching down, being more worried as Kaysen. So really showing their personalities through these body languages. But also I like that this issue actually gave the interaction between the two. They actually talk to each other, and this brings them into a new direction of embracing each other's lives even more, but kind of learning more from their lives at the same time. So a very solid issue. I've been enjoying this Freaky Friday type storyline with more mature twist, and that is Crosswind issue 4 gets 4 stars, and that is number 8. Alright. Moving on to number 7, I think this is the highest this book has ever been, even though I love this franchise. Sometimes it's always just in the middle for me, but the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 19, a really good issue. I like the side stories we get here of Billy and Trini just running with each other, Billy's mom being worried about him after he was trapped, but really, you know, in another dimension in the last arc. And even the small moment between Kimberly and her father of her learning that her father was getting remarried, something that was definitely touched upon in the show, but only slightly touched upon, never really got into the emotions of Kimberly. And we realize Kimberly doesn't even like the person that her father's marrying. So you get a really interesting emotional arc there, and I like her interaction with Tommy, and obviously the father knows who Tommy is, and he thinks it's cute that they have matching ringtones, but we know that they are the Power Rangers. So really cool Power Ranger scenes too as they get back into form. But the last part is where this, you know, random government lady comes in and she knows stuff. She's like, hey, Alpha, and Alpha's like, hey. So, you know, people are questioning the Power Rangers, like, what's going on here? And then we find out that she was the original Red Ranger. And I mean, cool that there's a female Red Ranger, but I'm so stoked to see who these first Rangers were. I know the storyline was coming, but I didn't expect her to be the Red Ranger. I thought she'd be like the Yellow Ranger or the Pink Ranger, but it's cool that she's a Red Ranger. So, awesome cliffhanger. Looking forward to seeing where this arc goes. I think I'm going to like this one even more than the Green Ranger one. So, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 19 gets a solid 4 stars. Really looking forward to seeing where that one goes. Alright, moving on to number 6. In another week, this definitely would have been my top 5, but there were so many great books this week. But number 6 is Detective Comics issue 965. And this issue, thank God, gets better, because I've not been liking Detective Comics up to this point for a little while. But it gets back to Tim Drake, and if you're a fan of Tim Drake, this is very much a love letter to his character, and showing why he's one of the best detectives of the DC Universe, and why he is the perfect character to unravel the mystery of Mr. Oz's lair. And there's some interesting stuff that happens in the end where we get to see him meet Batman with a gun, so he's like, what's going on here? This is weird. And then him meet himself as Batman, and Tim's like, no, I would never want to be Batman. That was never my plan. I just wanted to show that Batman needed people, and I knew he needed me. He needed a Robin. So I love that. I love his motivations and him being able to figure that all out. And then in the end, we see that Doomsday is in another place in this layer. So why did Mr. Oz save Doomsday? That's another question, because Mr. Oz saved Tim because out of all the humans, he's like, oh, you know, you remind me of me, so I like you. I think you could do better than humanity. But why Doomsday? Why does Mr. Oz, why does Jor-El like Doomsday? So very interested in that. Some great mystery unraveling here. We get some answers, but we also get some more questions, and great artwork with the shading in nice close-ups of Mr. Oz and Tim. Great conversations between the two. If you're a Tim Drake fan, this is definitely a must-read. And also, if you're following Action Comics and DC Rebirth, this is also a must-read. So I gave that one 4.5 stars. Now, moving on to number 5. Glad to see this in my top again. The Normals issue 5, which it looks like it's ending next issue, which is kind of weird. I think there's a lot more story to tell. But I like that this goes back to the family. We get to see the families, you know, adjusting to them being robots, but also uncovering the story of the other robots. And we get to see a nice little twist of the love triangle between these other robots, which was interesting. And also learning more about these, I guess, programs within the robots, because the daughter, she's really good at lying, and the mother's like, why are you good at lying? You see the brother is also good at hacking, but then they're still a normal family. It's still brother and sister, you know, antagonizing each other. But by the end, we get to see that someone is searching for them, and because they are in endanger the two children? Does this mean that they're gonna embrace maybe some of their abilities that they don't know of? And what direction will that send them? So really interesting stuff. I really like the interaction and good mystery also. I'm sad this is ending next issue, but I really enjoy this series. So the Normals issue 5 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Black Magick issue 8. Glad to see Black Magick back here, but I love the interaction between Rowan and Morgan, her partner, because her partner is starting to get, well, he's been suspicious of Rowan. And I love the reveal that he thinks that Rowan and Alex are in a relationship. And Rowan's like, no, that's not it. She's like a sister to me. I've known her all my life. But obviously, we know as the audience what she's hiding is that she's a witch. And will she tell our partner? Really interested in that. And I feel like this birth of their child has something to do with the mystery, because it's definitely coming close as we are unraveling these people chasing Rowan. So does her partner have a connection into all this? But really awesome character moments between the two. That is always the part I love the most about Black Magick, is that relationship. So glad that there's a big spotlight there. So Black Magick issue 8 gets 4.5 stars. Brilliant artwork as always too. And I can't wait to see where this series goes. Moving on to number 3, which is Archie, issue 24, a very emotional issue where we get to see Betty coming back to school, obviously quicker than anyone else would, and everyone trying to help Betty, but I love the line she uses. She says, what does she say? She just pretty much says, I can do it, but thank you. Always ending it with thank you, because she's appreciative, but she always trying to do it herself. And either, you know, trying to go up a ramp, all these different things. And she's also adjusting to life. You know, she has to move downstairs because she can't go upstairs in her room. And her parents are adjusting to life. They don't have enough money to renovate. She might have to go to community college. You know, all these different things that are going to be changed in Betty's life because of this. And she's dealing with it. She definitely has a smile on her face on the outside. But Archie knows there's, you know, there's something going on. And when we go into her room, she falls. And she's trying to do it herself. But she's angry that Archie's not there. And we know that Archie's not there because of Betty's father. Because Betty's still angry. And I love that moment where Archie sells the Mustang without having his parents to say so. So, love Archie here, love the Riverdale community, but Betty really had a great focus here. And also we get to see what's been going on with Reggie. You know, he's hated in the town because of what happened with Betty. So, a lot of great drama, a lot of good emotion with this one, and I've just been loving this Archie arc. So, Archie issue 24 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2. These were 2 hard picks because I gave 5 stars to both of these, and I don't give 5 stars every week, you know, it's a special book when it gets 5 stars. But number 2 is High Five Fight Club number 2, and I love this book so much. I love this story, and I like that with this issue, it's Chris finding out about the Fight Club, and it's not just like, yeah, let's join the Fight Club. It's her actually processing, oh my god, I work at a Fight Club. And I have to fight, you know? I have to learn to be a vigilante, and she's kind of seeping that in. So she doesn't feel like she belongs. She leaves, she goes home, she's kind of sulking. But then her world lights up again when Maggie calls, her crush calls. And they go out to the diner, and Chris is like, is this a date? Is it not a date? And I love the will they, won't they moment. And Maggie ends up paying, so it's probably a date. But it's a really cute moment between the two. But then she's walking Maggie home after their date, because we're going to call it a date. And Maggie sees something going on at the vinyl store. So Chris is like, oh, we should call the police, you know, like any normal person would say. And Maggie's like, yeah, okay. She climbs up a tree to get a better view, but she then kicks everyone's ass that was trying to get into the vinyl store, and the mystery starts to unravel that it's actually the bandmates of the singer who is missing. So I like that we get to see that mystery again with some awesome character moments, gorgeous artwork. I love the coloring, the bright blues, pinks, yellows, really great background colors that make every character pop. Great action too, though we didn't really get to see in the first issue because it was more crisp being, hey, something's going on, and there wasn't as much action. Now that she knows about the Fight Club, we are getting to see more action and the different fighting styles of our characters. So, High Five Fight Club issue 2 gets 5 stars, and that is number 2. I love this book. Moving on to number 1, though, and that is Spider-Gwen issue 24. Yes, Spider-Gwen makes number 1 and probably one of the series' best issues, where we get to see the prelude of Gwen becoming Venom. And, you know, Gwen thinks she's outsmarted Venom. She uses the love of music, which I really enjoyed, to defeat the Venom. But then Matt's always 5,000 steps ahead of Gwen, and he says, hey, you know, it's kind of your fault that your father is in a coma now. And Gwen's like, what? My father's in a coma? She runs to the hospital, sees what happened to her dad. Obviously, guilt seeps in because it's Gwen. She has a lot of guilt and a lot of anger bottled up. And the difference between Gwen and Peter, though, you know, Peter had Aunt May, Mary Jane, had Gwen, had all these people. Gwen really doesn't have anybody. I mean, she had her father, and that's it. And her father's in a coma. So now she's really going down this dark spiral, just like Matt Murdock wanted. And this is bringing her into being Gwenom and wanting revenge, and also trying to track down her father's, I won't say killer because he's not dead, but her father coma causer. So really interesting stuff. I love this. I can't wait to see more of Gwen as Venom. Some powerful stuff, beautiful artwork, where we get to see the emotions really seep through this issue, especially when Gwen is unmasked and the Venom is kind of consuming her. So really great stuff. If you're a Venom fan, this is a must read. If you're a Spider-Gwen fan, this is a must read. 5 stars for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and this was Comic Uno episode 210, and of course I have actually I don't know if I'll have an episode next week because I will have New York Comic Con, so we'll have to see if I'll have an episode or not, how quickly I can read my books, but I'll keep you updated about that, guys. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter, and don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.